everybody. Welcome to the city of Chicago. Now, as we go out from underneath the bridge, I'm going to start you all off with my favorite architect of all time. My favorite architect, a local Chicagoan, a lady by the name of Jeannie Gang. Jeannie Gang is a couple of buildings that we're going to be talking about right here at the beginning of our tour. She is a local Chicagoan, a Harvard grad, and a bona fide genius. And I can say that not only because I've seen her buildings, but also because she won the 2011 MacArthur Genius Grant. So let's look at her buildings. Let's start off right over here on the left-hand side with the newest addition to our skyline here in Chicago. That very tall, skinny building with the wavy blue glass on the outside of it is Vista Tower. Vista Tower will be finished next year. I've been watching it go up all summer. It's very exciting. That building is topped out at its final height, though, of 1,191 feet, making it the new third tallest building in Chicago and the tallest building in the world, designed by a female-led architecture firm as well, by Jeannie Gang and Studio Gang here in Chicago. Very beautiful building. The 6 different shades of blue, the way that it cascades up the building, you can tell that she grew up around the Great Lakes area. Kind of looks like waves out in Lake Michigan cascading up the building. And here's another thing. Along the tour today, I'm going to be teaching you all about 3 different ways that structural engineers keep tall buildings here in the Windy City from swaying too much. All tall buildings sway a little bit up at the top, but we want to keep them from swaying too much so that you don't get sick at the top floor, which is an excellent idea. So here's the first one I'm going to teach you. It's at Vista. You guys see way up at the 83rd floor, between the glass that's been laid down, there's still one floor that's still partially open. That is going to remain partially open to be a blow-through floor, a location where the wind can literally blow through the building and reduce 25% of the pressure on the windward side of the building. The blow-through floor is the first way I'm going to teach you about keeping a tall, skinny building from swaying too much. Very excited for Vista to go up. This is playing with a style of architecture called geological contextualism. Jeannie Gang was very inspired by the context of the Great Lakes area, what the Great Lakes look like. So it's playing with the geology of the area, which is why it kind of looks like waves out in Lake Michigan. We'll see that mimicked in a different way on her next building, but that is a very beautiful building, Vista Tower. It'll be multi-use, residential and hotel. The penthouse was actually already sold there for $17 million. It's a starter home here in Chicago. It's very normal, yeah. Coming up over here on the left-hand side, another building designed by Jeannie Gang. Behind that triangular building, the Swiss Hotel, kind of looks like a large Toblerone, is actually Aqua Tower. Finished in 2009. You guys see that blue building with the white fins cascading down the outside. Geological contextualism, kind of looking like eroded limestone. There's a lot of eroded limestone in the area around the Great Lakes. If you've ever been to Starved Rock in Illinois, has that as well. And here's something really cool. All of those fins, those balconies, are actually mathematically different from one another for 2 practical purposes. 1, it confuses the wind. It buffets the wind off the side of the building so that you can use your balcony year-round and you don't get that chilly Chicago wind cutting in on you. And 2, it creates a community. Jeannie Gang was a really, really incredible architect who's very conscious of wanting to create communities within her buildings. So because of the way that those fins cascade down the outside of the building, you can look over and see a bunch of your neighbors. You can say, hello neighbor, did you know that my balcony is mathematically different from your balcony? I bet you didn't, now you know. Aqua Tower, finished in 2009 by Jeannie Gang. Beautiful building. Now let's move on for now from Jeannie Gang. And let's talk about one of my favorite stories over here on the right-hand side. You guys see that building with the yellow onion up at the top? That is the Intercontinental Hotel. You guys see how it has kind of a chimney that's peeking out even above that. That is the highest point of the building over there, that chimney that peeks out above the yellow onion. That was originally designed to be the highest point of that building, to be a place where people could park their blimps at the top of it. And I love that story because no blimp related at the top of that building. Come on. But it shows you that the Haitian immigrant, first man in this area, he built his trading post over here on the right-hand side of the river. And Fort Dearborn, the very first star on the flag where we built our city around, was built over here on the left-hand side of the bridge. So yes, we are in the city center where the city was born from. Welcome to the beginning, everybody. And let's talk about this beautiful building over here in the city center. This white building with the clock tower up at the top is the Wrigley Building. The Wrigley Building was built in 1921 and 24. 250,000 glazed terracotta tiles on the outside of it. 6 different shades of white and cream. That's a style of architecture called Spanish Revival. Spanish Revival. Because in the late 1800s, early 1900s here in America, we didn't didn't really have our own style of architecture yet. We were still copying and pasting everything in Europe. The sense of beauty that they had, we were just making it our own. So that clock tower is directly designed after the Giralda Tower, which is on a cathedral in Sevilla, Spain. Hence, Spanish Revival. It's an office building here in Chicago that looks like a cathedral from Europe. What kind of story does that tell you? Now let's move on. About 80 years into the future, directly in front of us is the second tallest building here in Chicago. This is 1,389 feet, all the way up to that spire up there. Trump International Hotel and Tower, designed and finished in 2009 by Adrian Smith. Adrian Smith is another local Chicago starchitect. I'll talk about him later, Adrian Smith. This is a style of architecture called contextualism. These are site-specific buildings that harmonize with their context. So look up at the building. You guys see how it has 3 patios? 1, 2, 3. Those patios are actually matching the heights of buildings that came before it in the same area. The first patio was the same height as the Wrigley building. The second is the same height as the Mather Tower, that skinny Gothic building on the left that looks like an upside-down telescope. And the third is the same height as the AMA Plaza coming up on the right, that large black box building. So you guys see the way that it's tipping the cap to all the buildings that came before it in the same area? It's fitting into its context, contextualism, playing with the things around it. Very friendly style of architecture. Now let's talk about a style of architecture that is not doing that at all. Coming up on the right, this large black box is a quintessential example of black box modernism. Welcome to modernism, everybody. This is the AMA Plaza, finished in 1973, designed by Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. Mies van der Rohe, known as the father of American modernism. He's the one who coined the phrase, less is more. So that's what you see when you see these simple, stark black box buildings. It's less is more to a T. He built about 40 of these buildings here in Chicago. They all look pretty much exactly like that. So you'll see a lot of black boxes around the city of Chicago. Now let's move on to these often photographed, beautiful corncob-like towers coming up on the right-hand side. The Marina City Towers, finished in 1968, designed by Bertrand Goldberg. Bertrand Goldberg was an architect who was a bit of a social scientist. He was experimenting with getting people to live down here in the city center. Because up until that point in the 60s, most people lived on the outskirts of the city. He wanted to get the revolution of people moving back into the city center. But to get them to live here, he had to give them everything they needed all in one place. This is a city within a city. So you live up top, you have your car valet parked for you down below, your laundromat, your daycare, your movie theater, your ice skating rink, your restaurants, and of course you have your marina as well. Because you can't live without your boats. I mean, come on. Bertrand Goldberg knew that. His revolution worked. He got people to live down here in the city center again. It was a success. And it's a really beautiful design right here in the city center. With those cars parked up right next to the edge, you might be wondering, man, has a car ever gone off the edge, Sam? And yeah, it has. But it was on purpose. In the 1980 Steve McQueen movie, The Hunter, they had a car chasing that building and drove a car off of the Marina City Towers and into the Chicago River. Very cool. Coming up over here on the left-hand side, let's talk about this beautiful building with the contemporary glass and the white granite columns lining the outside. 77 West Wacker. That is a style of architecture called neoclassical. Neoclassical. Taking classical themes from Greece and Rome and updating them with that contemporary material. So you guys see how it has that solid base, soaring columns evenly proportioned, and that triangle way up the top, that pediment. All of these things from Greece and Rome updated with the glass. It's a tall, shiny Parthenon right here in the Chicago River. Very beautiful design. That building was finished in 1992, designed by Ricardo Bofill, who was a Spanish architect. One of the only non-American ones on our tour today. Are they doing wedding photos? There was wedding photos on one of the bridges earlier. Over here on the right-hand side, let's move over here for the grandfather of this section of the Chicago River, the Reed Murdoch. This low-lying red brick... Chicago! Well, that was exciting. This low-lying red brick building has very fun people hanging out at it. It's the Reed Murdoch, built in 1914. The Encyclopedia Britannica has their headquarters inside of this building nowadays, but it's had a lot of other things going on inside of it, like a warehouse, a makeshift hospital, and a traffic court at some point in time. Let's talk about those bridges. Coming up in front of us, the LaSalle Street Bridge is a quintessential example of a Chicago-style bridge. They are these burgundy double-leaf trunnion bascule bridges that we're going to go underneath a lot of today. They are double-leaf, so they open up in the middle like this. Oh yeah, that's what theater school teaches you. We have 37 movable bridges here in Chicago. That is more than anywhere in the entire world, other than Amsterdam has 61. Got a lot of movable bridges. Check this out over here on the left-hand side. This is pretty nifty. This building was built in two parts. That left part was built in 1927, and that right annex was built in 1986. I love the way that the architects are honoring the designs from the 20s, but updating them with that contemporary glass on the outside. Very cool. Let's back over here to the right-hand side for this giant building coming up with the Indiana limestone coating the outside. This is the Merchandise Mart, the Mart as we call it, built in 1930. It was the largest building in the world when it was built in 1930, and it remained that way until 1943 when the Pentagon was built. It's 4 million square feet, takes up 2 city blocks, and had its own zip code until 2008. And it's also an excellent example of Art Deco architecture. So here's what I want you to notice about Art Deco. Art Deco emphasizes the verticality and the movement of the building going up, up, up. You're always going to know it's Art Deco because it has these vertical lines right next to these deep, dark inset windows that break up the horizontal lines so that your eyes want to follow the building up towards those setbacks, following the movement of the building up. It's a very optimistic, opulent style of architecture that pops up in the Roaring 20s. When we have a lot of money here in America, are you familiar with the Roaring 20s? It's the jazz age, a lot of jazz, a lot of money. So they're spending it on these big, opulent buildings. So think of that when you see Art Deco. I like to hear the jazz when I see Art Deco because that's the time when it was built, the jazz age. Lots of repeated symbols, like on that building has those arrows as well. Very cool style, we'll come back to it later. All right. Eyes up, cameras up again. This is 360 degrees of beautiful. We are out here at Wolf Point. Wolf Point is the confluence of the 3 branches of the Chicago River. We're on the main branch. We're about to go up the north branch, down the south after that. There's a lot of new, beautiful buildings around here at Wolf Point. Over there on the right, Wolf Point East is that light blue building with the yellow crane that is still being worked on. Wolf Point West is that dark blue residential building on the right-hand side, built in 2017, and Wolf Point South is going to be right in the middle, not even started yet, but it's going to be almost twice as tall as Wolf Point West. Coming up in front of us, these 2 tall, shiny, bluish-purplish buildings are both built in 2017. That's a lot of new buildings around this particular area in the last 3 years. And that's something I want to point out, because we didn't really want to live around this area for most of our history in Chicago. Unfortunately, Wolf Point and the North and South Branch were very heavily polluted by the industries and warehouses around this area, so it wasn't very fun to be here. But in the last 40 years, we've really been making an effort to clean up the river, making it a place that was more habitable, which is why we have all these beautiful skyscrapers being built around Wolf Point in the last 3 or 4 years. We'll come back through Wolf Point a couple more times and talk about these buildings. But let us move on for now. We're going to go up the North Branch, and let's talk about that large peach rectangle coming up in front of us on the left-hand side of the river. That is Fulton House. Fulton House is actually the oldest building on our tour today, built in 1898. But here's a fun fact. That building didn't always look like that. You didn't even have holes in it. That building used to be a giant freezer. We had a booming meatpacking district here in Chicago on the south side. That's where we got our nickname, the Hog Butcher of the World, back in the day. And it's also where we get our nickname, the City of Broad Shoulders. As you can probably tell from your docent, City of Broad Shoulders. Yes, we used to haul that meat around and store it in giant freezers like Fulton House on the left-hand side. But then we stopped using it as a freezer, and an architect named Harry Weiss came in here and changed it into the condos you see today, finished in 1981. He spent 3 months thawing that building out. And as he was thawing it out, he had to take the insulation out of the walls as well. There was 3 feet of insulation, and he discovered that they used cork and horsehair to insulate that freezer. They took truckloads of that out. Fulton House finished in 1981 to the condos you see now. Harry Weiss also designed these triangular buildings coming up over here on the left-hand side. These triangular buildings are the riverfront cottages. The riverfront cottages are an excellent example of postmodernism. Do you guys remember modernism? Large black boxes, less is more. Think of postmodernism like the exact opposite. It's deliberately trying to be more is more. It's silly, it's whimsical. Look at how many shapes and things are going on with the riverfront cottages. He even designed them to be triangular because he was trying to evoke triangular sails. He's a big sailor, and he wanted you to think of triangular sails when you saw the riverfront cottages. And they've got those little circular windows as well that kind of look like portcullises that you would see on a boat. The riverfront cottages were finished in 1989, 30 years ago. And 30 years ago, he received a lot of criticism for putting them right there. People didn't get it. They were like, Harry Weiss, nobody wants to live down on the North Branch. There's nothing to do down here. They called it a stinking pit.